Hello, and welcome to the first Halloween installment of Women Crush Winesday, a series where I drink wine and talk about women I like. This month's crush is Mary Shelley, the creator of the science fiction genre of literature. Okay, there is no way I'm gonna get through this whole video like that, so here we go. Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin was born on August 30th, 1797 in London. Her parents were both basically political activists of their time. Her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, wrote one of the earliest known works of feminist philosophy, The Vindication of the Rights of Women, in 1792. Ladies, now let's get information. Her father, William Godwin, was a philosopher and a political writer who is credited for writing the first English detective novel, Caleb Williams, in 1794. He was a single father for 4 years to Mary and her half-sister Fanny, who was from an affair of her mother's after Mary's mother died, only 11 days after she was born. To single dads. In 1801, William remarried, and his new wife brought 2 children from a previous marriage into the family, Jane and Charles, and then eventually she and William had another child. So altogether there were 7 people living in one house, and that meant that education was not going to be that affordable. In stereotypical evil stepmother fashion, Mary's new stepmother decided to send her own daughter to school rather than Mary. Like many writers, Mary taught herself the tools of the trade. She could often be found reading any number of books from her father's extensive library, and even sometimes at her mother's grave. It probably didn't hurt that the Godwin household hosted a lot of the famous poets of the time, including William Wordsworth, who's thought to be the father of Romanticism. Mary, better than you without trying, Godwin published her first poem at 11 through her father's company, which only existed because of her stepmother. At the age of 15, Mary Godwin was the spitting image of her deceased mother. And in true evil stepmother fashion, her father's wife got jealous and shipped her off to Scotland, where she spent 2 years sitting in the shade of trees writing like any romantic poet would. On a brief trip home in November of 1812, Mary first met the then married poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. They didn't really get to know each other that well then, but in March of 1814, Mary returned home permanently, and she and Shelley got real close. Like, so close that in June, she and Percy went and eloped, even though he was still married and legally not allowed to get remarried. But then they went on a tour of Europe and lived happily, at least for a little while. Shelley wasn't so much obsessed with death as she was surrounded by it. On February 22nd, 1815, their first daughter was born prematurely. She died on March 6th. In January of the following year, Mary gave birth to a son who they named William after her father. The 3 of them, as well as Mary's stepsister Jane, then known as Claire Clairmont, went to Geneva to meet Lord Byron, famed poet and father of Ada Lovelace. It's believed that during this vacation in Geneva, Lord Byron and his guests were discussing and reading German ghost stories. He then went on and basically dared his guests to write their own ghost stories, and this is where it's said that Shelley started working on Frankenstein. But then the Shelleys returned to England, and not everything seemed quite as happy. Mary's half-sister Fanny committed suicide in October, then Percy's estranged wife drowned herself in November. Though her death was tragic, it meant that Mary and Percy could get married legally, and so they did on December 20th, 1816 at St. Mildred's Church in London. By May of 1817, Mary had apparently finished Frankenstein. She somehow knew that her public would want a romantic tale of her and Percy traveling across Europe rather than a ghost story, even though it's not really a ghost story. After giving birth to her second living child, Clara Ivernia Shelley, on September 2nd, she released a series of essays and poems from both herself and Percy titled A History of a 6 Weeks Tour in November of 1817. Then in 1818, when Mary was only 21 years old, Frankenstein was published anonymously. Many people thought that Percy had written it because he wrote the introduction to the first edition, but we know that he didn't. 3 years later, the second edition of Frankenstein was published, with Mary credited as the author. She was only 24! The book was an absolute hit, and it still is almost 200 years later. After Frankenstein took off, the Shelleys moved to Italy. Italy was supposed to be a happy place to go, but in September of 1818, their daughter passed away in Venice, and then the following June, their son William passed away in Rome.
Mary turned back to writing and penned Matilda by the end of the summer, but it didn't really make anything better, especially because she didn't even get to live to see it published. Her marriage to Percy was riddled with betrayal and adultery, and despite them having another child, Percy Florence Shelley, the hurt never really went away. That was partly due to the fact that Percy Bysshe Shelley drowned in July of 1822, only a month after Mary had a miscarriage. The rest of her life was basically marked by the grief over her husband's death and the necessity to support her son. Mary did not have a good relationship with her father-in-law, who looked down on his son's bohemian lifestyle. Mary edited and published some of Percy's poems posthumously, which his father did not like, and so they agreed for the sake of her son that she wouldn't do that anymore until Sir Timothy Shelley was gone. Is it ironic that Shelley died of brain cancer, or all the more tragic? She did get to live to see her only living child get married and become a baron, but then she died on February 1st, 1851 at the age of 53 in London. Shelley doesn't have a lot to do with Halloween herself, but her legacy is a staple of science fiction and horror. She's often thought of as the mother of modern science fiction literature because when you think of Mary Shelley, you think of Victor Frankenstein and his monster. But she was much more than that, and in my opinion, she deserved a lot more than what she got. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. In the comments below, let me know anything about Shelley that I may have left out in this video, because I know it's already really long. Or like your favorite ladies associated with Halloween. You may notice that there is no poll in the cards this time. That's because next month I'm going to be taking a break from this series just to see how it kind of fares as a bi-monthly series rather than a monthly series. And December's Woman Crush has already been pre-chosen because her birthday is on December 16th, so you will see Woman Crush Winesday in December. We'll see if I end up doing one for January. I'll let you know in December. The Scrivener will see you next week. I know I'm like really short today, but like you guys are supposed to be looking at the beautiful Dylan Bonner art. Mary, better than you without trying, Godwin posted Mary Shelley was on Tumblr. Didn't you guys know?